Welcome to the Loved Called Gifted podcast. This is your place to come for musings about spirituality, identity and purpose. I'm your host, Catherine Cowell. So for this episode, I am delighted to be with Pete Lewin in his summer house with his Newfoundlands. Would you like to introduce yourself, Pete?
Yeah, I'm Pete Lewin. I'm the director of Pete Lewin Newfoundlands. It's swimming with Newfoundland dogs in open water for mental health.
Yeah. And we're with some of your dogs now. Do you want to just tell us a bit about who we've got?
Well, in the summer house with us, we've got Storm. Storm's a 10-year-old. He's been with us from a puppy. He's a very, very sensitive dog. We've also got Walker and Ralph in the house. We've also got Sonar along with a Clumber Spaniel and a Springer Spaniel and a little terrier.
Excellent. So that is quite a lot of Newfoundland. And do you want to tell people a little bit about the Newfoundland breed?
Yeah, well, the Newfoundland breed, they are a breed that was used in Newfoundland centuries ago for helping the fishermen get the nets in. There was known years and years ago in Newfoundland as the St John's dog. Story goes, European settlers went over but wanted bigger dogs. So there was said that they were put to the Tibetan Mastiff, which obviously, as you look at a Tibetan Mastiff and then look at the Newfoundland's head, you can see the resemblance. Now, this is all history book stuff and not from my mouth, but the dog's trait is wanting to swim and save people, physically that is, in the water.
Yeah.
Not all. I've had dogs that don't want to swim, but then again there's sheepdogs that don't want to round sheep up, I'm sure. But they're a very special breed for helping people with mental health as well. And that is what we use them for. We don't use them for real rescue, although we train the forerunners of the ones I've got now for real rescue, but nobody seemed particularly interested in using us, which is a shame because that's such a capable dog in the water. So we sort of moved on to the mental health things, and at some point a bit later we'll tell you the story of how that all came about.
Yeah. So dogs are obviously a huge part of your life. What's your first memory of being with dogs?
When we were kids, we had a dog, and her name was Judy, and she was like a Manchester Terrier type thing, and she was lovely, but not really appreciating what that dog did for us as kids. And then when I moved away from home, I didn't have a dog for a number of years, and I quite fancied one, but just hadn't got the potential of having one because of work, where I lived, in flats, etc. And then I met Jen, my wife now, she got Irish setters, and we got together and we had the Irish setters, and we've had Great Danes. And then we tried living without a dog for a short time, and coming home to an empty house just didn't seem right. So we started looking at different breeds, and Jen mentioned the Newfoundland dog. Never heard of it. Let's go and read a book on Newfoundland dogs, see what they're like. And as I sat reading the book, tears coming down my cheeks with the heroism of the dog, the breed, and what it's capable of. And I just thought then, let's have a look, see if this is what we want. Our first dog was Gruff. We'd rang the kennel club up to ask if there was any Newfoundlands breeders around our area, and one popped up in Northamptonshire. So we rang them up and they said, well, we've not even advertised them. Where did you get the number from? We said, the kennel club. Well, come down and have a look. Went into the house, and the mother of the pups, quite a small dog, and I thought, no, this ain't what I expected. I expected a bigger dog. Then they said, do you want to come and see the puppies? As I'm going through their patio doors into the back garden, this monster came, put his paws up on my shoulders and pushed me on the floor. And I thought, well, that's it. That's what I want, one of them. Incredible. And that's how it started.
Yeah. What difference do you think it made to your childhood having dogs?
I'd like to think it makes you care a little bit more about animals. We had a rabbit as well. it was in a cage and the dog was running free, but we couldn't let the rabbit run free. And when the rabbit died, I didn't want another rabbit because it was in a cage. But the dog had got this freedom, which gave us that freedom, take him out and stuff. So I think having that bit of freedom and being with, an animal that relies on you, but actually we rely on them quite a bit.
Yeah. You've had a really kind of sense of connection.
Yeah. And I'm glad I have as well, Yeah, I just love the animals now and certainly my pets, which are my working dogs as well, but the pets first and foremost. I hate seeing them in any distress. So
Yeah. So we met at a day conference that was run by the University of Staffordshire, looking at wellbeing, and you came with Ralph.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that everybody had been kind of sat there listening to these talks in this sort of fairly sort of studious kind of place, and everybody's making notes. And there was a level of sort of dryness about the whole thing. And then you walked in with Ralph. It was really interesting to see how everybody sort of changed, their whole being shifted as Ralph came into the room. And there was a table of youngsters who'd been really looking kind of like 19-year-olds, a bit like, oh, I've got to sit through the lecture. And they all kind of sat up and their eyes lit up and there were smiles on their faces. I thought it was really interesting, the difference that made.
Yeah, having a big giant breed like this, and they're so nice-natured. Ralph's a bit rough around the edges, he's still a baby. And I was a bit unsure to take him to some of these things until he'd sort of calmed down a bit. But Ralph is developing into a fantastic dog for that type of thing. And you could tell as soon as I got to the university and that, the staff that came and met me was so excited to see Ralph. Mm-hmm. And then we walked into the room and he's like a showstopper. Yeah. And everything else what's happening, it's like everybody's looking round to see Ralph or whichever dog. I tell you, just walking down the street with one of the dogs has the same effect. So it's not just a classroom, it's wherever you go.
Yeah.
They have this same sort of effect. And it's fantastic to see, you can be just walking along, taking your dog a walk and people coming with a big smile on the face and that. And I did some filming and I went to the studios in Cardiff to do some stuff with the Crime Watch programme. And I got an email from a lady and she says, walking that dog, which was Bob, who's no longer with us, you was walking with your best friend. He'd got this awe about him, this kindness, this powerful energy. It's just amazing. And that's how these dogs grab people. Yeah. They have got this power, this energy, this sort of kindness, the loyalty. They just want to be with you and they will just want to please. They can be a bit funny with the dogs now and again, but they're not people, are they? No. But they want to please people. Just an amazing breed.
So do you want to tell us about how you ended up doing the water work with people, the swimming with dogs?
Yeah, I started with Gruff, Tetley and Jake, which are our first 3 Newfies we had. We used to do trials, and in the UK, that's pretty much what you do. You get a Newfoundland, you join a group, and you do trials, which is A, B, C, D and E, and you start off A. So what would A be? A is just like swimming out to somebody who's on a boat, and they give you a toy. Then it's swimming out to the handler, and again, not bringing the handler back, just swimming out to them. And then a retrieve, chucking out a retrieve, 3-4 metres, and dog goes fetch it, brings it back. Simple as that. You then build up from that to top end, where the dogs are having to really think for themselves. But with that, you tend to train the dogs only for that. Yeah. So we started doing that, and Gruff wouldn't swim with me, first of all. Reason being, in 1981, I nearly drowned in the Val Dam in South Africa. But yeah, bit of a scary moment. And they came and rescued me, which was quite nerve-wracking. Since then, I've become a swiftwater rescue technician for part of the job I was doing on the ambulance service. And I've also done lots and lots of stuff in the water now since. But first of all, Gruff wouldn't let me swim because, I wasn't confident.
That's really interesting. So you still got some fear around the water.
Absolutely, yeah. Jen and myself could swim out with Gruff in the middle of the pair of us. Jen would turn off, Gruff would get in front of me and push me back.
Really interesting. So he would have had no idea that you'd had that experience.
Even though I've got a buoyancy aid on, he still didn't think I was capable of doing it. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's what these dogs do. They pick up on things. I mean, he was 10 years old before he let me swim with him. So that's a long time. For him to let me swim with him was massive, massive joy for me.
Yeah.
So he obviously by then thought I'd gain my wings, if you like, to be able to get out in the water with him and be safe. But there was no fear of me drowning because he was there. Yeah. And he wasn't going to let me ever drown again or near drown again.
So you'd done some water rescue and stuff in the ambulance service.
Yeah. Had
your experience made you want to do that?
No. A lot of it was due to being in the water with the dogs. So moving on a little bit, I always thought, actually, we were only touching the surface of what these dogs are capable of.
Yeah.
Never thinking about the mental health side of things. I got a bit bored with the trials, so we moved away from the trials and I started using the dogs for real rescue. Because I'm a paramedic, I then got a look at it and I thought this would be a really good thing to get into. So we started training the dogs for real rescue. And with the specialist team I worked with the ambulance service, we did some training with them. And we developed a couple of manoeuvres for getting people out of the water. A C-spine immobilisation manoeuvre. And it was brilliant, but we never got used. And, we did it for a few years and I travelled the country showing different sort of fire services, rescue teams. But they all kept saying, well, why do we need dogs? We got boats. And I understand that. And it was never going to happen. We were more there for standing outside the shops and earning money, and because we got the dogs, people came and put pound notes in and
that wasn't at all what you were after, really.
I wanted dogs to work. Anyway, So at that point, I was going into schools as well, doing water safety workshops. We used to have a lass called Tracy. She'd come and help us out. I spoke to Tracy 10 years ago and I said, look, I'm going to start looking at doing something else with the dogs. So we looked at 9/11 dogs that were sort of like pat dogs, and these guys were coming over and you imagine the horrific things that they'd seen, and they were talking to the dogs, just the dogs, and then thanking the owners for letting them talk to the dogs because there's no reply back. It was just them venting everything that they've seen to that dog without somebody sort of butting in or asking questions. They just needed to talk. Quite moving to read that. So Tracy told me this story. She says, this is going back 10 years. So she said, I was due to come to help you at an event one day and she was late getting there. Well, that morning, she was tossing up whether to come and help me out or whether to take an overdose. Luckily, she came to us and she'd never really swam with the dogs before. She hadn't done a lot of work with them. But anyway, she got there and we got her into all the wet gear and the buoyancy aid and swam out with her. And Boris, our old dog at the time, came out to her. And it's how she described what she felt in that time. And she'd probably swam out 25, 30 metres. And she said, Boris swam out looking into her soul. Not judging, not condemning, not criticising, just coming out to rescue her, to take her back to shore. Was this rescue physical or was this rescue mental? For the mental health side of things. Anyway, she'd telling me these stories and sat round her house and it was quite emotional to listen to her. And you think, well, I want to do something in the water. I don't want to just have a pat dog like the emotional support dogs at 9/11. Even though they do a fantastic job, and there's emotional support dogs all over the country doing fantastic work, but I didn't want my dogs to do. I wanted something involving water. And then when she said how that made her feel, we then looked at, actually, shall we do it again with somebody else? So we started off really, really slowly, just doing 1 or 2 in a year. But every time somebody came to have that swim, the same thing was happening, was seeing the dogs, big smile, getting in the wetsuits and getting them in the water, the smile got bigger and bigger. And the end result was always the same, coming out sort of 2 foot taller with a big smile on the face. And you think something is happening. Whatever it is, I don't know. And it just took off from there.
So what sort of people do you work with?
Well, we work with military veterans.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with veterans. We do work with emergency service staff. We do work with people with anxiety and depression, PTSD. And to be honest, anybody. If people want to come and have a fun swim, we'll take people for a fun swim. I've done birthday swims for people, and I've done one-offs where somebody's really struggling but don't want to be with anybody else. And so as long as there's 2 of us there to help with the dogs and that one person comes for a swim, I'm quite happy doing that. But the veterans, and how that started was, in between the lockdowns, NHS for Veterans in Leicester got in touch with me and said, would we fancy putting a swim on? We've got no money, but we'd like to do it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll pay for the swim. We'll put food on and stuff, sandwiches and what have you. They then got BBC and ITV involved. The day came, they'd got 6 people swimming. ITV turned up, BBC turned up, both news channels, it was on there. A lady from Kennel Club had seen it, wrote to the NHS military and said, would we be interested in being put forward for Hero Dog of the Year at Crufts? Everything went quiet again because we got locked down again. So nothing happened again for months. And then we started swimming again. And I got an email from the Kennel Club, would I still be interested? Or give me a call and we'll have a chat. So I rang the lady up and I said, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Let's have a go. And then 2022, they came and filmed us at the lake doing what we do. And they put this amazing film together. Very emotional. It was just showing what we did.
Yeah.
And I never really understood what we did until really I saw that and saw how not only me getting emotional, but other people. And then we went to the launch at the Kennel Club for the Hero Dogs, and there was, I think it was 6 other dogs involved in it. All had the story. Each one of them dogs could have won. But when we played my video at the end, they all came up and said, you've won this. I said, so emotional and so different what you're doing.
Yeah. It
was a public vote and we won.
Wonderful.
And then it makes you realise actually what you've fallen into and what an amazing thing. It's something I've been blessed to do, and the amount of people that we've helped from the military, from emergency service staff, people just coming and swimming. And fella here, Storm, he's saved a lot of people.
I'm wondering what other particular stories or particular people kind of come to mind when you're thinking about differences made.
Yeah, we've got a veteran. He was in Ireland and his mate was shot right next to him. He came on one of the swims through the veterans thing and he now comes and helps out quite regular. Reason being, he's tried to commit suicide a number of times because of his mate being killed next to him. He don't need to commit suicide or even think about it because he knows he can come and have a swim with the dogs. Not all the time, because obviously through the winter we don't do it, but...
So how does he describe his experience of swimming with the dogs? What does he say about it?
He says it feels like you're floating, weightless with them. It gives him peace. It gives him the tranquility that he's after. And it takes everything away from his mind, away from that sort of day. And he goes into the water with the dogs and it just... And a lot of people have said the same thing. Because I never ask questions when they come, because I'm not a counsellor, I'm a paramedic.
Yeah.
But what they tell me is they feel weightless in the water, and you've got your dog therapy, you've got your water therapy, you've got your environmental therapy, and everything is so peaceful, and we're just taking them away from their everyday life, their thoughts, and we're taking them away from that just for a few hours. But that few hours that they're with us can extend to a few more hours because they think about it. They think about what they benefited from being with the dogs. And that's the water side of it, the environmental side, and the peace, the quiet, and the fact that we're there for them. To sort of see how that benefits them is incredible.
Yeah.
And that then helps me.
Yeah. You're obviously somebody who's very, very connected to your feelings and your emotions, and I'm wondering, has that always been the case?
Well, I never thought so, but a lot of people say I was. I've always thought I'm a bit of a mickey taker, but people from years gone by, when I was cycling and stuff, said I was always a little bit sort of emotional, if you like, but I never realised I was. And then joining the ambulance service and working with, you get something horrible and you get on with it because you're not allowed to sort of show your feelings.
That was going through my mind, that actually as somebody who's got a real deep sense of empathy for people, but being on the ambulance service, I mean, I see a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I was in the building trade and I was a plasterer, and I'd been a plasterer from man and boy, but I got ripped off 2 jobs, one after the other. We were very close to losing the house and everything. So I then said, look, I'm going to start looking for something else job-wise. But I was still plastering. I just had to get on with life, and I was working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to get money back in the bank, trying to survive and pay the bills, etc. And then my daughter, who unfortunately is not with us anymore, she says, I found a job for you. I said, what's that? She says, PTS, it's non-emergency ambulance work. She says, you could talk rubbish all day, you'd be good at that. I thought, well, again, this is me, nothing ventured, nothing gained attitude. Well, I'll try it. So I rang them up and said, I've been self-employed since I was 16. I never went to school when I should have done. Is it really worth me having a go? They said, well, yeah, of course it is. Second week in June, Leicestershire Ambulance Service, as it was then, driving test. Just showing what I could do. 20 minutes out, and they said, yeah, you're fine. Then I had to do a medical. At the time, I was running marathons and doing lots of cycling, so I passed the medical quite easily. Then I had to go and do an English and maths exam. 15 minutes of each, and then after I've had that done then, I was invited in to do an interview with the boss. Anyway, did the English and maths exam, but I never went to school when I should have done. I got a job when I was a young kid working with these plasterers, so I didn't need to really do anything school-wise. I'd already got a job. Anyway, so I knocked on the door because we were told to go and have the interview. And I said, if this counts for anything out there, the English and maths, I'll say goodbye and thank you. And he said, well, thank you for your honesty. Come on in, it's what we're seeing here that counts. 29 years later, I'm still there. Yeah. And the guy who gave me the job, we go out for coffee now and again. He's retired, I'm nearly retired. So we go out for coffee and that. And that's how I got on the ambulance service. Mm. I asked him actually a couple of years ago, I said, what did you see in me to actually think that I could be any good at what I'm doing? And he said, the fact that you gave me honest answers. He says, some of the answers that I were getting off other people, you think they were supermen, he says, but you were dead honest. And he says, I loved it. That's why you got the job. And he says, now you're a paramedic, you might not be the most technical paramedic, but your skills of communication with people is second to none. He says, there'd be nobody better than you with your communication. I thought, well, that's nice.
So what's kept you there for 29 years?
People. Just helping, doing my bit. I don't feel like I owe anybody anything, but I do it because I want to be there for people, I suppose. Yeah, I could have retired. I probably got a bit of institutionalised being part of the Green family, and I couldn't just walk away from it. I still work Saturday, Sundays now, and I'm 66 now, and I still like going to work, and I still like doing what I do. I work on a fast response car. I'm first on scene for a lot of jobs. Yeah. The job has changed over the years, but, I still enjoy it. And I seem to have gained a lot of respect from people. I've done 29 years without a complaint, so somewhere along the line I'm probably doing something right.
It would seem so.
You know, yeah.
One of the things you said at the conference was that your green uniform's not bulletproof.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. I will get emotional now.
Yeah.
When you wear that green uniform, you go into houses and you're there, you're strong for people, you're their rock.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I'm somebody's rock. And I've been that rock for all these years.
Yeah.
Probably 8-9 years ago, maybe a bit more, there was a job in Derby where 6 children were in a house fire, murdered in a house fire. I was on this specialist team and we went down to this job doing CPR in the street on one of the kiddies. I rang Jen up to tell her I was going to be late. That was the first time I'd ever cried on a job, about a job. And that still haunts me today. Not just the kiddie we worked on, because I've worked on kiddies in the past. And you can't save everybody, I'm not a god. We have to accept the fact we can't save everybody. And we have to accept that. And that's part of what we do, and that's where this hard skin comes from. But it was the whole thing, not just doing the CPR on the kiddie, it was washing my hands afterwards, and my arms were black, and that soot come off of that kid doing the chest compressions. Going into a room, and paramedics in there crying. Time served, paras crying. The impact was massive. 6 kids for no reason. So when I talked about the uniform not being bulletproof, obviously we're there to be strong for people. But at the end of the day, behind that uniform, we're still human. And we still have feelings. And we still have sort of thoughts. You still woke up at night. And that's why I said that seminar about being able to talk to people. I wouldn't say we weren't allowed to in our day. It was probably frowned upon in our day.
Part of the culture.
No, you were there to do a job, and that's what you did, and you got on with it. And that was the first job I'd ever cried on.
Yeah.
But then I started doing the emotional support with the dogs, and yeah, a bit of a blubbering wreck really now.
Bit of a
blubbering wreck. But is that because of what we're doing with all these people and what we're achieving?
But it sounds like perhaps part of what's happening is that you're creating that environment so that other people can have space to talk, to express their feelings, to have that sort of emotional release. But you're with the dogs in the water too, so maybe I'm just wondering whether that's enabled you to sort of have space to feel.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm wondering whether having that, becoming more able to sort of express your emotions, what difference that makes to sort of your emotional quality of life.
I think because I do get quite emotional now around the water and stuff, and people see that and they think, well, it's not a bad thing to let your emotions out.
Yeah.
And perhaps it does help, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed, like at the seminar I said, then, there's a good chance we're going to do well up, and I'm quite happy to do so, because talking about what we do is quite a passionate thing of mine, and developing something that helps so many people.
And you're absolutely right. It does give other people permission to feel. Because if you were there sort of, well, I'm your rock and I'm not going to show any emotion. Think about like the veterans and people they've been in. There is a similarity, isn't there?
Absolutely.
In that within their work environment, there are lots of situations where they wouldn't culturally be expected to be emotional either. So you almost need to be in touch with your own feelings in order to give them permission to be in touch with theirs.
Absolutely, yeah. Doing our job and doing their job.
We have a very snory dog.
We do, yeah. All adds to the flavour of it, though, doesn't it? Yeah. But also, last year, I lost my daughter to cancer. But I feel able to talk about that grief and let people understand that I know about grief myself now, and I understand what these people are going through. And I went to a cardiac arrest the other day, and the lady was dead when we got there. And the family were all really, and they kept going, I'm sorry, about being in tears. And I said, let me tell you now, don't be sorry. I lost my daughter and my mum last year. I said, I know exactly what you're going through. But I was strong enough now to be able to deal with that. There's still going to be triggers. there will always be triggers.
Yeah.
But I sort of got it in my own head, let's get rid of 12 months of everything, and then I'm going to get back to being where I am, because I'm better helping people when I'm right than I am in the blubbering wreck. I had to have time off work. I've been seeing a bereavement counsellor. Never thought I'd ever say the day I'd see a counsellor, but I went to see this bereavement counsellor earlier on in this year.
Yeah.
Her and her team came to see and have a swim with the dogs. A group of therapists from bereavement counsellors. There was a group of them. I think there's about 7 of them all. And the bereavement counsellor tells me every time I see her about how swimming with the dogs made her feel, because she absolutely got a lot out of that. That peace, the quiet, the dogs pulling you to shore. She says, I would never go into open water, she says, but I made her feel safe. She said, but when the dogs came out, that made her feel 10 times safer. And you think, well, I'll go and see you then, because you've expressed to me what so many people have said, how it makes them feel. So I can talk to you and you'll understand what I feel like. And that's what's happened. I went to see her last week and she says, you're back to normal. She says, brilliant. She said, do you feel stronger? I said, yeah, brilliant. And I sort of made a plan in my own head. And she says, don't need to go to work, you've got to want to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to do it, and I want to do things again.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was like in a fog. Nothing was clicking.
Yeah.
I was going back to work, and I went back to work, and I was trying to be Pete Lewin, but I weren't. I'm back to him now, but I weren't at the time. And in fact, I had a crew back me up last weekend, and they said, oh, you're back then? I said, yeah. They said, really worried about you, a few months ago. And she said, I actually rang up one of the lasses at Hinckley, the only lady I knew, and said, keep an eye on him because I don't think he's right. Yeah, well, I thought different.
Yeah.
And I found it really difficult going back to work, and the manager's talking about staff having respect for me and showing that they really cared for me. And I found that really, really difficult.
So you found it difficult to let them be there for you?
Yeah. It's the wrong way round.
Maybe we're all meant to be there for one another.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
Perhaps we're all walking each other home.
Yeah. And somebody said people that help people like myself that set up stuff to help people. It's funny how we all sort of know and get to know each other through different sort of ways. Said it's like we're a tribe and we should all be together. And I thought, well, that's a nice way of looking at it. A tribe of people that help others.
I think you're not alone. Well, you all know that you're not at all alone in being very free with the giving and finding the receiving tricky.
Yeah, I've never been one for that. It's like when my friend said, and her sister who came for the swim and said, Pete doesn't understand what he's got here, does he? Is that because I didn't really want to understand it?
Yeah, well, I think there might be something in that.
Because I'm just doing it because I'm doing it. I didn't really want to get too involved, I suppose. But further down the line, I do understand what I'm giving. And it's not just being in the water as well, it's here, in this summer house now. I've had 2 people. Well, the first guy, he rang me up, can I come and see the dogs? Yeah, of course you can. I found out a few weeks later, that afternoon, he'd made a plan to go and jump in front of a train.
Oh, gosh. But he came and saw your dogs instead?
Yeah. We sat out the back for about 4 hours chatting. Storm, who's here snoring, just sat there with his head on his lap. The guy says, I feel nothing for nobody. I don't feel for my family. I'm in a black hole and I'm just going to die. He went away from here thinking of his family. We actually got him to come and stay with us for about 6 weeks. So we kept an eye on him. And he went to America to see my mate, the retired firefighter. And one of the counsellors that used to look after the 9/11 medics and firefighters looked after him for a couple of weeks and got him on a straight and narrow. Yeah. And then a few months ago, I had another guy ring me up and said, can I come and see you? In here, told me his story. Now he's still around. So, yeah, little haven this is.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, so people come and see the dogs. They don't have to particularly have them sat with them all the time, but, well, as you can see, Walker's out there, Ralph's out there, Storm's here. but they're still around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very, very proud of what we've done. I want to help groups of people because each person in that group gets something from that other person. And it's all run by humour. And the veterans thing that we do, you know, and this ambulance service, we've all got this sort of strange, dark sense of humour, but we all get on.
Yeah.
And it works. And I say to them, please don't be ashamed if you cry or if something puts you to tears, because we're all here together.
Yeah.
It's a lovely thing to see. And I'm so, so proud of it being given to me somehow.
Yes, yeah. It does have it was meant to be feel about it, doesn't it?
Does, yeah. And again, when I joined the ambulance service, it was like I should have been there all the time. Things seem to fall into place for a reason.
It's interesting that the two biggest things in your life have come when something else has not worked. Yeah. So, you know, you needed to move out of the plastering, or you had the sense that it would be sensible to get something a bit more kind of steady. Yeah. And you ended up in something that obviously really, really suited you. You had a real affinity for. And then it was the trying to get the dogs to do the real rescue. That didn't work out, but this is so, so valuable. Yeah. And obviously really right for you. You'll get a huge amount from it.
Oh, masses. Yeah. Yeah. But the daughter that passed away, I mean, she was so, so proud of what we did. Yeah. She said, I just don't understand what people get out of swimming with the dogs. And then August 23, we had a charity swim for her. It turned out to be her last time out of hospital. A lot of her mates came for this charity swim, and she got a mobility scooter and she was down at the bottom and having a great day. She'd even got her kit on underneath to get in the water if she felt strong enough, but unfortunately she didn't. Anyway, I got out of the water and I said to her, "He had a good day?" She says, "Yeah." And she said, "Just to let you know, I get it."
Yeah. When did she die?
23, 3 weeks later. Yeah. Difficult. It was a tough year. But knowing full well that she said, "You'd be good at that job because you can talk rubbish all day." And I know what she'd be saying. Get on with it. And that's what I've done. It's difficult sometimes to talk about it in this situation, but I've got back into green. If I can go to patients now and be their rock, might get to the car and have a tear or two after. But as long as I can be their rock now and not well up in front of them, then I'm happy. And perhaps Paula's power of persuasion is helping me there. Yeah.
It's being kind of in the position where you can be the rock when you're with people, but then also having the outlet.
Yeah. And I do that. Yeah. Whatever people think, I don't particularly watch it, but it was on last night. Jen watches it, and Barry McGuigan on that Celebrity Get Me Out of Here thing, he was saying about him losing his daughter. A few tears then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you know what he's going through, and that's 10 years ago, and he's still like it. But there's going to be triggers that will always be there for us, always. So we're getting a blossoming cherry tree. It's going in the corner on the lawn here, and we're going to get family and friends round. We're going to plant the tree for her.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But I've learnt a lot since losing her. Yeah. So we still did the swims, but not as many, and I feel like I've let a lot of people down by not getting back in touch with people and stuff and whatever, because we did a piece on the telly, Super Dogs with Extraordinary Jobs, and there's so many people reaching out, but I just couldn't reach back to them because I was not in a great place.
No.
You know, I reached out to one or two, we helped one or two, but I couldn't do them all because some of the messages that we get in emails asking for help, I just couldn't deal with it.
No, absolutely. You need that time, don't you? You talked about that time of sort of being in a fog where you're grieving and you need the space.
Yeah. I've had so many people saying they'd like to help, so I've got groups around the country that want to do it and take on. So the next couple of years, I'm going to start sort of pushing it out to people. It's a legacy.
Absolutely.
And why shouldn't other groups do it now? I'll show them what we do, and it would be nice if they carried on doing it the way I did it. But in time, they'll find their own ways, hopefully, and
they might discover things, and you might learn from them too.
Absolutely. So if people want to do it, I'm going to start pushing it to them because it would be such a shame. In fact, one of the ladies who's in charge of the Newfoundland club, she asked me at Crufts this year, said, what's going to happen if you retire from it all? I said, I don't know. I said, it might die with me. She says, no. She says, no, it can't. She says, it's too important. You're very special, and you've not just done it for you and people, but you've done it for the breed.
Yeah.
And the breed has got so well known because of you and what you do, because groups all over the country, when I see people from the group say, oh, we've had people coming and asking if these are the dogs that are on the telly doing the mental health stuff.
Oh, wow. Well, it's interesting because you described reading about them all those years ago and finding that very emotional. You obviously had a real kind of connection with the Newfoundland as a breed, and that's been really special, and look where it is now.
Yeah. I don't have the best groomed dogs in the world, but they're probably some of the happiest dogs around. But,
Oh, they're gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now I have a large person sat next to me.
This is Ralph.
Hello, Ralph.
He's the youngster.
Yeah, he's beautiful. Thank you so much, Pete, for sharing.
Yeah.
Ralph is now investigating the microphone, the recorder. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story and your passion. I shall turn the recorder off, but thank you ever so much for your time. That's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Loved Called Gifted podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can email lovedcalledgifted@gmail.com. You can find a transcript of this podcast at lovedcalledgifted.com, and that's also the place to go if you're interested in the Loved Called Gifted course, or if you'd like to find out about spiritual direction or coaching. Thank you for listening.